Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors. Dr. Allen chats with successful investors exploring their journey from setback to triumph. Through this window, we glimpse the truths that inspire our guests to invest abundantly and flourish in all areas of life. And now your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. Today's guest is in the creative finance business. He structures out-of-the-box deals in technology, new media, green energy, healthcare, and classifies themselves as an industry agnostic. With his strategic partners, they can act as principal note receiver for debt cash flow with a $100 million fund. One of his strategic partners is Niall Henson, the creator of country music television and who was a key development executive in the startup of MTV and Nickelodeon. Welcome back to the show, Ken Sheppard.
Well, Ken, welcome back to the program. It's a pleasure to be able to visit with you once again here. Just to kind of sum up where we had left off, we had talked about where you really began as an entrepreneur, which was way back in your teenage years. And we talked about some of the really interesting abilities that you developed during that period of time that are still serving you today, particularly in the way that your business is structured. In fact, you actually had mentioned that it's the same process, the same structure that you were utilizing when you first started your first business as a teenager. As we talk about this, that's one of the things I want to focus on here are core strengths, but I want to relate this to some of the latest research that has come out of the Authentic Happiness Institute at the University of Pennsylvania. And what they have discovered through their research is that there are actually 5 pillars that are critical to our well-being. And those 5 pillars are positive emotions, engagement, which a lot of people refer to as that flow experience, human relationships, purpose or meaning, however you want to look at that, and the 5th one is achievement. And as I've been interviewing a lot of accomplished people, it's really come to my attention that most accomplished people have a pretty good score on really all 5 of those elements. Of course, none of us can have too much well-being in our lives. It's always nice to have more of that. But in conjunction to that, what I want to really kind of explore with you is the utilization that of your core strength, which came to you, it seems to me like pretty intuitively. You really understood that you had a gift for persistence in the face of discouragement. And what I am looking at is your ability as a teenager to go into that aspect of making cold calls without any training, without really any particular guidance. And you just intuitively picked up on that and went with it and rolled with it, and you've capitalized upon that particular core strength really throughout the course of your life. You did talk to me also as we were finishing the program. You talked about that aspect of fear, which is part of what you had to deal with, particularly when you first started making those cold calls. But as you were dealing with this particular life crisis in terms of dealing with the cancer, you once again were faced with a fear. And as you explained it, the way that you deal with that is through information. And you and your wife spent a great deal of time researching and understanding the processes, particularly of stem cells, and by that we're able to reduce that fear factor. So talk to us a little bit about how throughout really the course of your life that core strength has been probably a real centerpiece in your success. And if you can just kind of look through your career and look
Sure.
back through that and talk a little bit about that process there.
Sure. Well, first of all, the fear is not having knowledge. I mean, if more knowledge you have, and the more way you understand things work, the less you're going to be frightened by anything. And that just, that goes to the core of just anything in general, whether it be family, real estate, business in general, whatever, health, all of that tends to having information. And I think once you have that information, then you have the ability to see the potential results. And when you see the potential results, you can kind of pick a path to decide what you want to go down, and then just think positively no matter what happens. If you think negative, like when my stem cell came up, I was not able to do the stem cell unless I was psychologically profiled positively. Because if you're not in that space in your brain, they won't take you in because they don't want people in the middle going, oh my gosh, I'm dying or something. And so you have to pass about an hour to an hour and a half. My wife and I had a psychological profile, mostly for me, but also for her because she was my caregiver and in the room the entire time. And they told me, they said, a lot of people just don't pass because they have this attitude of, I'm not going to win. And I think you have to have that attitude in life, whatever it may be. I also want to add one other thing. I just want to bring up an offside point. If you have 4 or 5 choices of times to pick to speak to somebody when they set up a call with you or a meeting with you, you always want to pick the one, if you can, that's the soonest possible. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one is it shows your motivation to them that you really want to get something done. Number two is it allows that transaction or that situation, whether it's real estate, business, medical, or otherwise, to proceed that much quicker. Now, it may only be that you're available on the last time that they have for whatever reason. But I'm just saying, if somebody gives you a set of times, if possible, always pick the soonest one. That's just off topic. Back on topic is I think that you have to be really, you have to have an attitude that you will not be defeated. And you will come up with some path, some way to navigate whatever that situation may be. And that goes back to when I was a young 10, maybe 13, 14-year-old, and I had to start thinking about how do I deal with some things other than just school. And school, even in school, you had to think about, if you have different choices of how to spend your time, it always actually goes back to school that you have to manage your schedule. And you have to figure out how to not get overwhelmed with your schedule, no matter what it is. And that's carried me through to today. I mean, when I have a series of things that I need to attend to, I won't think about them all at the same time. I'll line them up, put them in a list, and attack them one at a time. Because I think if you try and think about them all at the same time, for me, it just doesn't work. I'm not a really good multitask person. I like to do one thing at a time. It comes maybe from my being an accounting person for many years, or just my nature of being that kind of person that tries to keep organized and out of risk. And that's true with how we buy our insurance. It's true with what kind of leverage we put on property, meaning how much loan you put against the value. It goes to the core of how I think. And it's really all about being, you may not win. You don't always win, but you have to think about a path to an end result that's a win. It's like any sport.
Yeah. For
They
those
don't go
just
out in
tuning
the
in,
field. Yeah, sorry. Go
uh,
ahead.
for those just tuning into the program today, Ken Sheppard is my guest. He's a returning guest, and I'm really pleased to have him back on the program because he is a man with a lot of experience that he has translated to wisdom. And he is here today again, and I am trying to pick his brain to understand uh, how it is that Ken ticks so that the rest of us can learn from his wealth of knowledge, experience that has really translated into to wisdom. Ken, as you're talking about this, you're talking about the uh, that knowledge helps us to deal with fear, and the more knowledge we have, the more that we're going to knock that fear down. And then, as you were discussing, you also mentioned that aspect of accepting the fact that you're not going to win all of the time, but also having that attitude that you know that you ultimately are going to win if you continue that process. So it seems like there's two things that are really important
Try.
there: is the knowledge itself, and then the attitude of knowing that someday you are actually going to win if you persist in the endeavor. I you just another thing that just this is kind of off topic here, but you had mentioned that you had been in the accounting profession. I had not realized that. I know you had been in the creative arts and all of those different things. I didn't know you had also been an accountant as well. So much more diverse than what I even knew there. So how did a creative person like you end up in the accounting profession?
Well, when I was in college, I took a business major, and one of the things you had to take was an accounting course. You had to take actually a set of accounting courses as part of your business major. In my case, I took accounting and business as a major because I understood numbers really well. I'd worked with them a lot. And it was, I wanted to understand as I went into the business world how accounting works. Because I think if you have a basic understanding of how those things are done, it's a skill set that takes you through life. Like when I read all kinds of financial statements, profit and loss statements, and balance sheets and such like that. I mean, I can understand them a lot better than a lot of other people. I can read through them quickly and I can make note of them. So I took that in college. And then when I finished college, I was a musician when I was a kid. I took music as a minor in college. And when I finished college, I had an opportunity to go to the William Morris Agency in the accounting and finance department for the television group. And amongst other opportunities, that's the one I chose. So that's what got me into a situation where I was able to mix my creative interests with my accounting interests and eventually move it over time more into the straight creative side rather than the accounting side, although I always had the background and still do to understand and be able to keep a set of books from the very time you start a company all the way through to the end of the year, and even into doing other things that you do when you restart books in a new year. So I'm not a CPA, but I have enough skill sets that I know how to do that, and I do that for other reasons. Is that when you're working with sets of books, it makes you clearly understand the path of the income, because without income, the whole business has no ability to flourish. I mean, you can have the best marketing people, you can have the best accounting people, you can have the best lawyers, you can have all those things. But if you don't have sales, it's very difficult to have a business. So you have to think about, first and foremost, how do I create sales? And then in my case, I know how to, interpret those sales into keeping books and records. But most people don't. I understand that. But as part of my background for about 12 years, after college, I did that accounting kind of work, or location auditing, or production executive work, something that had to deal with the numbers of the productions. And so I understood how to mix them pretty well, and I did well with it.
Well, an amazing career that you've had, and a tremendous amount of variety through that time. And you've worked with a variety of people in a variety of situations, and have had a remarkable amount of achievement in the business world, and I'm suspecting that probably in the personal world you have had uh, a reasonable amount of success in terms of your personal relationships. How do you to bring together your personal life and your business life in order for both to flourish?
Okay, so the great question. First of all, I think you have to separate them, because they're, like in my case, I'm married. When I was a single person, it really didn't matter. I worked sometimes 6, 7 days a week because that's all I was, I wanted to make sure. When I was a kid, I always said, if I have a $20 bill in the drawer, and I always open up the drawer and there's a 20 there, I'm happy. So that's always been my way of thinking. You always want to have security. To me, $20 at that time was security. Now the number, of course, is different. But I think you have to definitely separate them. You have to make time for both of them. And, I think it's really important. The other thing I was going to say about both of them is when you start a conversation with anybody, many times people will want to just jump into whatever that subject may be, whether it's, I don't know what it is, doesn't matter. But I like to start a conversation with, how are you? What's going on with you? What about this COVID-19 mess? A few things that may have nothing to do with the purpose of the call, just to let the person on the other side know you're thinking about them and they mean something to you. And it's not just a call. Like if you're going into a deal call, you don't have to start the deal call with, going over the contract. You can start the deal call with could be just 1 minute or 2 of just, how's everybody doing? Any news that is, everybody okay from COVID-19? Is everything okay with your family? Those kind of things. And then you go into the deal with, point, if it's a deal call. And I found that by doing that, I think it works in every situation, personal, business, church, everything. And I didn't used to do it, but I learned from some people that are much wiser than me that it's a really good way to start a discussion. And it doesn't take long, but I think it's important to do that. And then once, you start the discussion, always leave room for the other person to talk, and don't just, it has to be a pace. If any one person dominates the conversation, it's not a conversation, it's an oratory. It's just somebody speaking and everybody else sitting listening. And so I think that it's important to hear everybody's thoughts that's on the call if they want to make a thought, or it may be on some calls there's too many people for everybody to speak, but they could certainly listen and learn. But I think it's really important to give that space to any call and to pace it in such a way that it's not, like when I talk to guys from New York, their pace is different than the guys from the Midwest and people in Europe and, and South America, wherever. The pace is different. Most of the time, the pace is like this. When you talk to people from New York, or sometimes even here, and they're just, whatever they're doing, their pace may be much quicker. But many times when I'm on a call with somebody who's moving at that pace, I'll keep up with them if I have to, but I'll sometimes talk at this pace to force them in a gentle way to slow down their pace, because I absorb stuff a whole lot better. I mean, I can talk as fast as anybody, deal as fast as anybody. But I think at this pace, even though you don't, it takes a little longer to get to the same point. It's a much more relaxed space to work in, be in. Most people, when you talk to them, they can't respond to you immediately. You know, if I go, like, if I say something, sometimes somebody can, many times they're very fast. But if they're not very fast, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they speak between 1 and 5, and they answer you because they're processing that information that you said to them. And so I think that that's something that's really important, is to not just speak, but listen. You learn a whole lot more from listening than you'll ever learn from speaking. Does that help?
Yeah, that's some wise counsel in terms of relationships. I had recently been listening to Dr. DeMartini, and he emphasizes the importance of discovering your purpose, your meaning in life, and allowing that actually to be the driving force for whatever it is that you do in life. And clearly, whether I don't know that we've necessarily articulated it on this show, but I suspect that you have a clear understanding of what your purpose is in life. Can you share with us what that purpose and meaning is?
Well, first and foremost, my wife,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure she's healthy, happy, and that we just make sure the house is, everybody's, feeling good. That's number one. And number two is probably just having security, whether that means economic, whether that means personal, whether that means whatever it means to you, because everybody may have a different thinking, but what is their why? Because I've heard that before. What's your why? And so, of course, economics is important because it's difficult without that. It's very difficult. People do it. I'm sure if they had the opportunity, they might not, but a lot of people don't have that opportunity, and hopefully they will get that. But if they don't, then it is what it is. I've taught people without even getting paid how to make money in real estate when you have no money through my radio show. And it's very popular. It's getting more so because these other courses cost $30,000 or so, and I don't charge anything. It took me about 2 years to put together, but it was a very worthwhile experience from a spiritual place and from a nourishing place, just to give it away. Who knows who's using it? Who knows who's not? I don't know. Sometimes I hear from people, sometimes I don't. So it's okay either way. But I think that giving is much more important than receiving. I think if you first say, like when I was a kid, my first thought was, when am I getting paid and how much am I getting paid? As I've gotten older, I think about how can I place service on this? How can I provide business development? How can I create jobs, feed families, fund companies, create family legacy through my work? And out of that comes revenue, and out of that comes nourishment. But I think when you think first for others, then for yourself, it's much more, I don't know, it's just a nicer place to live, nice in your heart. And I think even business can be hard and fast, okay, but it always has people. You don't have business without people. And so, and I think when you're in anything, whether you're in customer service, whether you're in what we do, whether you're in anything that involves interaction with people, it's important to keep those things in mind. Now, if you're in a business where you're in a cubbyhole all day and you don't talk to anybody and you're just doing whatever, that's different. But a lot of times, there's interaction, and it's a people world, and so I think it's just important to just and treat everybody right, treat everybody the same. I don't look at anywhere from where they're from, how long it took them to get where they are, if they came from a economically challenged background or a wealthy background or anything in the middle. Doesn't matter to me, because sometimes I think when you look at things that way, people, like I said, people are people, and I think if you treat everybody the same and treat everybody equally and nice, unless they turn out to be doing something wrong, okay? It's like one other thing I'll say, like you read contracts all day. Contracts are written for people who don't tell the truth. That's what they're written for. They're not written for the guy that'll keep his word or the gal that'll keep their word. It's written when somebody doesn't keep their word. So I sign them all the time, and people say, haven't you had an attorney look at that? I say, no, because I've read it, I understand it, and I'm not planning to violate anything in it. I've never had that happen. So why would I do that? I don't want to go to sleep at night thinking that I violated contracts. It's not worth it to me, no matter how much money's involved. I hope that answers your question, sort of.
Yes, yeah, it does. And I think that the real successful people in life have learned that lesson, that the more people you help, the more you help those people to help other people, the more reward and the more comes back to you. So thank you for articulating
I
that.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I want to touch here. Clearly, you've had a life of achievement, but as you reflect back on your life, what do you count as your most rewarding and most lasting achievement?
Well, certainly one would be our marriage, because it's nourishing every day, all day long, a blessing beyond words I can even say. Second is the longstanding relationships I've had, since I was in high school. People that I call, people that I just check in with from time to time. I think it's all about, like we talked about, the nourishing thought of, did I do something for somebody else today? I think that's really a big part of it. What did I do today for anybody? Did I do something for somebody today, whether it be opening a door, whether it be a phone call, whatever it might be, to make them feel better and have them feel more lifted? I think when you live your life that way, it doesn't take long. They call somebody, take 5 minutes. Send them a text. You don't even have to call them. But today, at least, used to be you had to call them. Now you can send a text, an email, whatever, or you can send a letter, or you can send a card. I learned a lot of that at church. That they send a lot of cards. They're always reaching out to others, taking care of others. God helps those who help themselves. Well, actually, that's not the right term in that case. It's more that you're blessed to be a blessing, to help others, you help yourself. You feel nourished by giving more than receiving. And I think that when you live your life under that philosophy, no matter what religion you have, or even if you don't have a religion, if you live your life with the philosophy of, what did I do today for somebody somewhere that made them feel better, made them a better person, gave them a piece of information that was helping to them? Because I've had it done for me all my life. I have people I can call even today that are people I know that are extremely wealthy when I have a question or something, or some people that have nothing to do with economics. Like I call certain people to get their opinion and give them mine, and if they want it. But it's all about giving back, nourishment, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that's really wonderful when I asked you what your greatest achievement was, I was kind of expecting you to reference some of your phenomenal business achievements, but what you immediately went to were those relational situations and achievements. And I appreciate that. That's gives us just another clue as to what is really the foundation of your phenomenal success in life. So, my guest today is Ken Sheppard. Has been sharing with us some very important and wise things about his lifelong success. And once again, Ken, we're really out of time here. So tell the folks how they can get in touch with you.
Just as we were concluding our program today, we lost internet connectivity. I just wanted to share with our viewers and listeners how to make connection with Ken. You can find him at his website at www.creativeflips.webs.com. That's creativeflips.webs.com. You could also reach him by phone. His office is 310-358-7087. His cell phone is 818-585-9706. Ken can also be reached by email at fci@pacbell.net. That is Foxtrot Charlie India at pacbell, PACBELL.net.
Thank you for tuning in to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital. Steed Talker Capital works with both new and established investors nationwide, creating opportunities to flourish in all areas of life. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures great and small flourish abundantly. For resources to enhance your well-being through multifamily real estate investment, connect with us online at capital.steedtalker.com.